If you can't start, it's not because you're lazy, it's because your brain has learned that starting costs too much. And in the next few minutes, you'll recognize the exact moment it happens. There is a moment that decides your whole day. Not the moment you fail, not the moment you scroll for an hour, the moment right before you begin. You sit down, you open the laptop, you open the file. You even place your hands where they need to be. From the outside, it looks like you're starting. But inside, something tightens. It's not panic. It's not fear the way movies show fear. It's quieter than that. It's a small internal no. And here's what makes it confusing. You still want the result. You want the finished essay. You want the clean inbox. You want the workout done. You want the business task completed. You want the version of yourself who follows through. So why can't you just begin? This is where most people insult themselves. They call it laziness. They call it lack of discipline. They call it weak character. But if it were laziness, you wouldn't feel that tension. Lazy people don't sit there with a task open, bargaining with themselves. This isn't laziness. This is your nervous system making a prediction. Let me show you the prediction. You're about to start, and your brain silently runs a quick calculation. How hard will this feel? How long will it take? How messy will it be? What if I don't do it well? What if I start and I still can't finish? What does this say about me if I try and fail? You don't hear these questions as words. You feel them as weight. Now, watch what happens next. Your mind offers you an escape. Something small, something reasonable. I'll get water first. I'll just check one message. I'll start after I look this up. Let me organize my desk so I can do it properly. These sound harmless. They even sound responsible. But they all do the same thing. They delay the moment of contact with the task. And the second you accept the delay, relief arrives. Not joy, not satisfaction, relief. Your shoulders loosen, the pressure in your chest drops. Your brain says, "Good, we avoided that." That relief is the whole problem, because relief is a reward. Your brain doesn't only learn from success, it learns from what reduces discomfort fastest. So every time you escape the start, your brain learns a rule. Starting is dangerous. Avoiding is safe. This is why procrastination feels strange. In the moment, it doesn't feel like self-sabotage. It feels like self-protection, like you just saved yourself from something expensive. And I want you to notice something else. The escape is usually tiny. A short scroll, a quick snack, a random video, a few minutes resetting. But those few minutes aren't neutral. They are training. They train your brain to associate the beginning of effort with discomfort and the act of avoiding with relief. Over time, the brain becomes very efficient at this. It learns the earliest moment it can interrupt you. It doesn't wait until you're exhausted. It doesn't wait until the task is hard. It interrupts you at the doorway. Because if it can stop you before you begin, it never has to face uncertainty. Now here is the part most people don't understand. The task itself is not what your brain is afraid of. It's the feeling that comes with the task. Uncertainty, messiness, the possibility of struggling, the possibility of not being good. Starting forces you to meet reality. And reality is uncomfortable because it's not controlled. When you haven't started yet, the idea of doing it perfectly still exists. The fantasy version of you still exists. The moment you begin, the fantasy collapses into real work. Real work is imperfect. It's slow. It includes doubt. So your brain protects the fantasy. It says, "Not now. Not like this. Not until we feel ready." But ready is usually a lie your nervous system tells to avoid uncertainty. Let's make this painfully concrete. Think of writing. When you don't write, you can still imagine you're a good writer. When you do write, you have to see the sentence on the page. It might be clumsy. It might be boring. It might prove you need practice. That is the cost. Not effort, exposure. Or think of the gym. Before you go, you are the person who could be fit. Once you start, you feel the heaviness. You feel your breath. You confront your current level. That is the cost. Reality. This is why so many people prepare instead of start. They research for hours. They watch videos. They buy tools. They plan. Planning feels safe because it feels like progress without exposure. It's movement without risk. And again, your brain rewards it because planning reduces discomfort. So the brain quietly labels planning as the smart choice and starting as the dangerous choice. One more thing to notice. The escape is almost always designed to be small. Your brain rarely says, "Abandon the project forever." It says, "Just take a quick break." Because a quick break doesn't trigger your alarm system. It doesn't feel like quitting. It feels like being reasonable. And this is why the phone is so powerful. Not because it's evil, because it is the fastest door to relief that has ever existed. You don't even have to stand up. You don't have to walk away. You just move your thumb. In less than a second, your attention is somewhere else. Your nervous system gets the message, "We escaped." So the brain begins to use distraction like an emergency exit. Anytime effort appears, anytime uncertainty rises, it reaches for the exit. And the more often you use the exit, the more the brain trusts it. This creates a trap that looks like personality. You start saying, "I'm just not the type of person who follows through." But what you're actually describing is a trained reflex. A reflex can feel like identity when you repeat it long enough. So when you sit down and feel that quiet resistance, don't treat it like a moral verdict. Treat it like a signal that your brain has learned a story about starting. A story that says, beginning equals discomfort. Here's the final truth of this section. You don't fail at discipline in the middle. You fail at the doorway. And the doorway is guarded by one feeling. This will cost too much. In the next section, I'm going to show you why avoidance feels so convincing, why it can feel like intelligence, and why motivation loses to this every time. By now, you can probably recognize the moment when you stop yourself from starting. But here's the part that confuses people. If avoidance is so destructive, why does it feel so convincing? Why doesn't it feel like self-sabotage in the moment? Why does it feel like the right choice? The answer is uncomfortable. Avoidance doesn't feel like weakness. It feels like intelligence. Your brain is not trying to ruin your life. It is trying to manage cost. And it is very good at it. Remember the calculation we talked about earlier? Starting feels uncertain. Uncertainty feels expensive. So the brain looks for a cheaper option. Avoidance is cheap. It removes discomfort immediately. It requires no exposure, no effort, no risk. From the brain's point of view, this is not procrastination. It's efficiency. Let's slow this down and make it real. Think about how avoidance actually shows up in your day. Not as quitting, but as logic. You tell yourself, "This isn't the right time," or "I'll do this when I can give it my full attention," or "I should wait until I feel more focused." Notice how reasonable those sentences sound. They don't sound like excuses. They sound like judgment. This is why avoidance is hard to argue with. It doesn't present itself as fear, it presents itself as strategy. For example, you're about to work and you realize you don't know exactly where to begin. That uncertainty creates tension, and the brain says, let's clarify first. So you research, you read, you watch, and suddenly an hour has passed. The brain feels productive because it stayed busy, but the task never started. Or think about email. Writing the difficult message feels risky, so you clean your inbox instead. You respond to easy messages. You organize folders. Everything feels responsible. Nothing feels dangerous. And the one message that matters stays untouched. Avoidance often disguises itself as preparation, as organization, as being smart about it. And every time you accept that disguise, the brain reinforces the rule. Delay is safer than exposure. This is why avoidance survives logic. Because it doesn't argue with you. It agrees with you. It uses your intelligence against you. And that's what makes it so convincing. This is why telling yourself to just be disciplined rarely works. Discipline sounds abstract. Cost feels real. And the brain always obeys what feels real. This is also why motivation fails so consistently. Motivation is a future promise. Cost is a present sensation. The present almost always wins. Now here is the mistake most advice makes. It tries to increase motivation. But motivation doesn't reduce cost. Sometimes it actually increases it. When you hype yourself up, you raise expectations. And higher expectations raise the perceived cost of failure. This is why you can feel more pressure after a motivational video, not less. So, if motivation doesn't work, what does? The answer is not discipline, it's entry cost. Starting feels hard because the brain believes the first step is expensive. So the solution is not to make yourself stronger, it's to make the first step cheaper. This is where most people misunderstand small steps. They think small steps are about being gentle. They're not. Small steps are about bypassing threat detection. The brain does not resist effort. It resists uncertain effort. When the first step is clear, brief, and almost impossible to fail, the alarm system doesn't activate. This is why the 1-minute rule works. Not because 1 minute is productive, but because 1 minute feels safe. The brain hears, we're not committing. We're not exposing ourselves. We're just touching the task. And once you touch the task, something shifts. Not motivation, momentum. Momentum does not require belief, it only requires contact. This is why starting badly is more powerful than waiting to start properly. A bad first sentence is cheaper than a perfect plan. The brain would rather fix something real than imagine something ideal. So the reversal is simple, but it is not easy to accept. You stop asking, how do I stay disciplined? And you start asking, how do I make starting feel harmless? Because once starting feels harmless, discipline becomes unnecessary, and avoidance loses its power. If you've listened this far, it's probably because something in this video felt familiar. Not inspiring, not exciting, familiar. That's not an accident. This isn't about fixing yourself, it's about understanding why certain patterns keep repeating, even when you want something different. Most people spend their lives fighting their own mind. They rely on guilt. They wait for motivation. They assume discipline is something you either have or don't. And when it doesn't work, they turn the blame inward. But the mind doesn't change through pressure, it changes through clarity. When you understand why something feels hard, it stops feeling like a personal failure. That's what this channel is for. Not productivity hacks, not empty motivation, just clear explanations of how the mind actually works, and how certain patterns can be retrained without turning against yourself. If this way of thinking resonates with you, subscribe. Not because you need more content, but because you value understanding over noise. In the next videos, we'll keep exploring the patterns that quietly shape behavior: attention, avoidance, discipline, and identity, one idea at a time. Until then, notice the moment right before you start. That's where change actually begins.